Today, I want to talk about the room acoustics in your home studio and in your bedroom studio, boys and girls. Question: what is the hardest thing to get right? Yes, it's the low end. It's the bass, right? But it's so important to get the low end right in your studio in order to make mixing decisions. Don't even think about buying a new mic pre or any other mixing gear before you get your low end right. And today I want to talk about how you can improve the low end in your studio, and I want to show you a pretty revolutionary product, a totally new way of controlling the low end in your control room. I'm going to test it today and find out if it's something for you and something for me. Let's get started. But first, let's talk about what we expect from a control room. Well, first of all, we want to listen to our music, right? We don't want to listen to our room. A control room is not an opera or a live room where we want to hear a reverb, where we want the room to color our sound. That's not what we want. We want the control room to be as neutral as possible, and especially in the bass. There's nothing like taste, like nobody will tell you, hey, I like a bass response like this. No, we all want our bass in the control room to be as linear as possible, because that gives us the right environment for making mixing decisions. And what causes the problem? Well, of course, the reflections of the room. No matter what we do, we're always going to listen to a blend, a mixture of the direct sound coming from your monitors and the response, the reflections of the room, because the monitor will shoot into all directions and it will bounce back from the ceiling, the floor, and the walls. And this will not only cause an uneven frequency response, especially in the bass with peaks and dips of 20 or even 30 dB, but it will also cause an uneven reverb in the time domain. That means some frequencies will ring longer than others, especially the standing waves of the room, so the frequency wavelengths that fit exactly to the dimensions of your room, they will ring longer. And that causes an uneven, kind of cloudy sounding low end that most people have in their home studios, that most people have in smaller rooms. And that will make it pretty much impossible to make proper mix decisions. So just imagine you play a certain note on your guitar, and that note triggers the room to ring longer, has a longer reverb because it's a standing wave in your room. And then you go on with playing the next note. The note before will still ring and will kind of smear the whole low end. You won't be able to properly hear the difference between those notes, and you will try to fix it with EQ, but that problem's only gonna exist in your room and nowhere else. So once you've corrected that and you go to another room, your mix is not gonna translate, because you've fixed a problem that is not existent anywhere else. And that's what professional acoustic engineers do when they design rooms. So they're trying to tame those reflections. So either they're trying to absorb those reflections with absorbers, or they're trying to guide those reflections around you. The aim is always to not have any early reflections that kind of fight with the direct sound from the monitors, and to have an even response from the room, both in the frequency and in the time domain. Next question: why is it more difficult to tame the low end? Well, the simple answer is because the wavelengths of those lower frequencies are longer. You basically just need a piece of acoustic foam to tame the very highs, to tame those very, very short wavelengths, no problem. So you can treat your entire room with foam and, you have absorbed all the higher frequencies. Sounds like shit, but you get the idea. So the lower, the deeper we go, the longer the waveform. And the really deep bass notes have waveforms that are several meters long. So you can imagine it's a lot harder to fix, a lot harder to tame those frequencies, because we need a lot of absorbent material. Think rock wool or whatever. So it needs to be really, really thick. And we're talking about really, really thick to tame those wavelengths, those low frequencies. That means it's doable in theory, but you will lose a lot of space in your room. which is not doable in small rooms. You know, in big studios, if you build a new studio, you can afford that. You can afford to get rid of whatever, more than a meter on each side, no problem. But in a home studio, that's not possible. But yeah, there are other types of low-end absorbers, of course. Like in my main control room over there, I got two huge Helmholtz absorbers. And they are super effective, don't get me wrong, but they only work at a certain frequency. You know, they can be tuned a little bit. If you put absorbent material into them, you can make them a little wider and stuff. But they basically will just work very effectively, but at one frequency, which means because you need to tame a lot of frequencies, they need to be a part of a concept. And that is the next problem. So as soon as you go into Helmholtz absorbers, or as soon as you go into foil absorbers or membrane absorbers, you actually have to know what you are doing. You need a professional because you need to come up with a concept. You can't just put it anywhere and believe it's going to help you. You need an acoustic concept by a professional, and that means it's going to be expensive. And then someone needs to build those absorbers. Maybe you can do that, maybe not, but you can't just order your custom-made absorbers at Thomann. Impossible. So what we've learned is there is no easy fix for the low end in your studio, especially not in smaller rooms, because the smaller the room, the bigger the problems. So you either need a lot of space or you need a lot of money and professional advice. I'm sorry. But there's a new kid on the block, and that is the PSI AVAA, which I believe is the only and the first active bass trap out there. So that is a little box that you put into your room, you turn it on, and it will actively absorb bass. Crazy, right? And what they tell me is it's supposed to be very effective. It's supposed to be a perfect bass trap of 5 times its original size. And what makes it even more crazy is it's going down to 50 hertz. That's what they say. And believe me, getting 50 hertz right, you need so much space. So that's a pretty hefty promise. So what I want to do today is I'm going to test the PSI AVAA, and I'm going to do it in 2 rooms. I'm going to start here in this control room that is already properly treated. I got to say that. Not perfect, but you know, there's a lot of bass trapping in here, and angled walls and a lot of broadband absorbers, and so I don't expect it to do much here, but I'm gonna do a listening test in here. But then here's the fun part. I'm gonna take it to a real bedroom studio. No, to a completely untreated, shitty sounding room, and we're gonna check it out in that room as well. And the question is, how are we gonna do that? Well, the only way to show you the results and to do it properly is to measure it. So I'm going to use Room EQ Wizard, which is a software that everybody should have, by the way. It's free. And we're going to measure the effect of putting 1 and 2 AVAAs into the room. We're going to move speakers. We're going to move mics. We're going to move AVAAs. We're going to have a lot of fun. And we're going to do that now. Let's go. So let's do a real world field test. I know that most of you guys are not working in a professional environment. You are working in a so-called bedroom studio. And you know what? Today we're gonna do the ultimate bedroom studio test. We're gonna go to the so-called heavy metal hotel. No, that is the little studio bedroom that I have here at KOHLE Studio for the musicians, if musicians are staying here. That's a pretty small room, a small box, completely untreated. We're going to put the AVAAs there, and we're going to do some measurements, some field tests to find out how they perform in a room like that. So follow me to the heavy metal hotel. Come on. So here we are. You see, small room, nothing in here, a little chaotic. Some guitar speakers, some stuff. We'll try to get the room as empty as possible. We got a Mackie speaker. Hopefully this one's gonna go deep enough. If not, we will have to take one of the bigger speakers from one of the control rooms. But we're gonna start with this. We've got a little Motu, Mark of the Unicorn interface connected to a MacBook. What we want to do first is we want to find the right position for the speaker and for the microphone. Because the most effective thing you can do in any studio is moving the speaker and moving your position. So we're going to try to find the best position, first of all, that gets us the most linear response in the bass, and from there on we will start putting the AVAAs as first 1 and then 2 into the room, and we're going to experiment a little with different positions and measure everything and show you the results. We are using this microphone here, which is a good old Octava MC12 microphone. You must use a Omni microphone if you want to make room measurements. That's really important. You can't use a cardioid mic. You need a real Omni mic, and that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to use that mic. In case you wonder why we're only using one speaker, you should always do the measurements with one speaker. Even if it's in a stereo setup, you should measure the speakers separately and move them and try to improve the setup. And I want to start with having the speaker as close to the wall as possible. That means, as you might know, we're going to get a little more bass because it's close to a surface, close to the wall. But we're not going to get any weird resonances and boundary effects from reflections coming back from the wall. Or let's say less. If you got a soffit mounted speaker in the wall, you're not going to get this. But you should try to get, usually you should try to get as close as possible to the wall, or you should move away quite a bit. And we will test a few different microphone positions, so a few different possible listening positions. We'll start with 4 positions. One is really close. The next one will be something like here. One that is even further away, still realistic. And one that is in the back of the room, which probably not gonna be good. But the measurements will probably help us to understand the room modes and where we should be. So let's do 4 measurements first and compare them. So let's have a look at the measurements, and let's have a look at those 4 possible listening positions. Before doing that, let me just quickly tell you that the most effective thing to improve the low end in your studio is trying different listening positions, finding the sweet spot in your room for both the monitor and yourself, your ears. And you can only do that with measurements like this. All right, let's open the first measurements. So this is the first one. We can see, it goes from 20 something hertz up till 500. But basically, I'm just interested in this area here right now. So this looks pretty good. I gotta say that. Then we have the next one a little further away. And this one actually looks even better because it's very smooth here. And then there's a dip here that I don't like. But I'm pretty sure this might just be some kind of reflection that we might get rid of if we slightly move the microphone. But from here to here, it actually looks really good, pretty impressive. Okay, next one. Okay, and here it gets clearly worse. So this is the 3rd position, further back in the room. And you see this is not good, this is not good. And finally, this is in the back of the room. And you see, this is much worse. This goes up and down here. And probably right here, we have one of the main room modes, one of the main standing waves at maybe 56 hertz or something. So looking at this right now, it seems like if we are here or here, these two look pretty good. And if we go further to the back, it gets worse. But just look at this, look at the difference. How much you can achieve by just moving your position. You see that? That is a huge difference, okay? And right now, we're just looking at the frequency response. There's something else that is actually way more interesting, and that is the so-called waterfall over here. Because this shows you not only the frequency response that you can see here, but it shows you the frequency response over time, which means it shows you the reverb. And I think this is the first example here. You can see the reverb is much longer down here than it is up here. At, you see, 56 hertz, we can see a room mode here, and we see another one up here. So let's have a look at those 4 measurements again, and this time we just look at the ringing. So there's the first one, and then, wow, look at this. There's the second one. And you see that this room mode is tamed quite a bit. It looks much better. The third one, gets worse. And the fourth one gets even worse. You see, this one is huge. This is going to sound terrible at 50 hertz. That speaks for position number 2, because the frequency response is pretty flat here, and it has the least ringing compared to all the other positions. The only thing I'm not a fan of is this dip here, but that was the next goal, to get rid of that one or to improve that one by now fine-tuning the position of both the speaker and the microphone. Let's go. Next thing we did was fine-tuning the position here, and we were trying to move it a little closer, but it turned out it was just making things worse. We were getting like a weird null in the upper bass range. So we basically kept the microphone here and started experimenting with the height of the speaker. And it looked like you can already see it now. So when we moved up the speaker a little bit, we could improve that null we had. And now look at this. After moving the speaker up a little bit, we started here. Look at this. You see the dip? We got here. And that looks quite a bit better. Still not great around here. 135. This is a critical area. Still not great. But you see, you can once again improve this by slightly moving things. Also here, it looks way better. And then finally, we moved the speaker from the left to the right. Tried a few things here and there. Just, just move it, measure, move it, measure. So this is where we started. And this is where we ended up. And you see, this looks quite a bit better. So what I want you to do is get Room EQ Wizard. This is a free software. And start moving things and start measuring. It's very, very effective. So that means we have already improved quite a lot. And this was the moment when we started adding the AVAAs to the room. Okay, the first setup is both AVAAs in the back corners of the room. Let's go. So hours later and countless measurements later, I think we are now smarter, but also a little confused. I can already tell you need some time for experiments. And it's not always what you expect. So what we did is we left both the speaker and the mic untouched and just moved the two AVAAs to all possible positions. We started in the back corners and moved them up a bit and down again, and then had them in the opposite corners like this and like that. And then we had them only over there and then only over there. And then we tried only one AVAA and lots of different combinations. And you can see we did a lot of measurements. Because what we learned is you can't just put the AVAAs into any corner and expect them to improve things. You really got to find out where they shine. You got to find their sweet spot. Okay, so we started with this position. I think my favorite was actually having both AVAAs in the front, which looked like this. So we're once again slightly improving the entire frequency response. I also liked having both of them in one of the back corners stacked. I think this, you see, also quite a bit better, but I think both of them in the front is better. And we tried a lot of different positions. Some of them didn't even improve anything. If you look at whatever, one AVAA in the left back corner looks like this. But anyway, adding two of them most of the time improved the frequency response. But you know what? It's way more important to look at the waterfall, at the time domain, because I think a lot of you guys are actually using room correction software, something like SonarWorks, right? An EQ basically. And with an EQ, you can correct this here. You can correct like the initial frequency response of a room. What you cannot correct with EQ is the time domain. Because if your room is ringing longer at a certain frequency, if you EQ it out, it's still going to ring. You know what I mean? It's still going to ring. You can't change that with EQ. If you want to change something in the time domain, in your reverb, you need to go further. So let's have a look at the waterfalls. And we start with this. So this was our final position before adding the AVAAs. Let's just turn them on. And wow, once again, down here. Focus on this area here. Before, after. Then we turn them off again. Boom. So this is significantly reducing the ringing down here, let's say from 50 to, 60 hertz, and one of the main room modes of that bedroom. But also if you look here, it's also taking away those bumps here. So this is very, very effectively reducing the lowest room mode. And to be honest, that is 55 hertz. You will need shitloads of passive absorbers and a lot of space to do something here. Or a specially tuned Helmholtz absorber that also needs a lot of space. So this is, I think this is quite impressive. Look at this, much better than this. I gotta say, like up here, I don't see like let's say above 100 hertz, and that was the same in this room. I don't see a lot happening for some reason. So it feels like the AVAAs are mainly working in the lows. I mean, which is good because, it's the most difficult frequency range to treat. On the other hand, I don't know, I expected them to do more in the upper bass range. So now that we have measured all the possible combinations with this setup, what we're gonna do is now, let's just use another setup. Let's just put the mic somewhere else and do the same experiment again, just to make sure that we were not flawed by exactly this setup here. I think we kept the speaker at the same position and randomly moved the mic somewhere just to have another reference, And the first measurement without the AVAAs just looked like this. And this is not looking good. There's like more than a 20 dB difference between 55 hertz and 70 something, and then again 180. So with a frequency response like this, it's gonna be difficult to mix your low end. We first added one AVAA into one corner, looks like this. All right, already better. Then we put the same one into another corner, looked like this, which I think again is, at least here, slightly better again, the blue one. Then we moved it into another corner, this time a back corner. Okay, now it gets worse. This is the best result we could get with one AVAA. And then we tried two AVAAs. So this is one AVAA, this is two. So slightly better again. Two in a different position. Oh, yeah, even better. Look at this. And two in the front. No, not good. That means we started with this, and by adding two AVAAs, it looks like this. Oh, this one is even better, isn't it? Okay, this one looks great. This one is the best. Having both the AVAAs in the back. This is good. Okay, so let's have a look at the waterfall between those two. So this is this one and that one. So this is where we started. You can see the standing wave down here once again. And boom. And once again, things are getting reduced quite a bit. It's not as extreme as in the other example. I don't know why. But you can clearly see the difference. What's weird is that if you look at the upper bass range, with the AVAA, it's actually getting a little longer. So yeah, once again, very effective down here, 55 hertz. Not doing much in the upper bass range, for whatever reason. All right, time to sum it up. This was a lot of fun, right? Time to ask the ultimate question. Do I recommend the AVAA, yes or no? Well, the answer is, it depends on what you want to do with it. Because it is a lot of money. One of them is 2,000 something, 500 euros or something. The good news is they work. They work. They actually reduce the low end in your room. They reduce the ringing of even the lowest standing waves. And that is, I think, one of the main selling points. They really go down low. If you need to reduce some standing waves, some ringing in the low lows, like below 100 hertz, this is very effective. And I guess even if you pay that money for them, it's better than whatever, adding shitloads of absorbers to your room, or sacrificing a lot of space to get, for example, 50 hertz under control. That was very impressive. The other reason for getting the AVAAs for me would be if I need a mobile setup, if I work in different rooms, or if I do mobile recording, or if I simply am not allowed to change the room I'm working in at the moment, if I can't just put absorbers everywhere, or maybe I'm not sure if I'm going to stay there for long or something like that. So in those cases, you get a very, very versatile, portable setup that you can take anywhere and into any room you're working at. I wouldn't say disappointed, but I'm a little surprised by the upper bass performance, because there wasn't a lot happening, not in this room and not in the other room. It's impressive how it improves the low lows, but above 100 hertz, there wasn't much of a difference in all my measurements for whatever reason. But maybe that's just my rooms, who knows? And then again, it is way easier to tame the frequencies above 100 hertz with, let's say, traditional passive absorbers compared to anything below 100 hertz. And I know you will ask this question: how does it sound, Kohle? Can you hear the difference? And that's not exactly the right question. I will still give you an answer, because, as I said in the beginning, it's not a matter of taste. You want to have a linear low end. And if anything you've seen here today that makes the low end more linear and less reverberant and less boomy and less resonant is good. It's not a matter of taste. And there's nothing more sexy than mixing in a room with a tight low end, a tight and linear low end. So, of course, you can hear the difference, and the difference is good. But the most important thing we've learned is you got to move your speakers, and you got to move your listening position, and you got to measure. Same thing with the AVAAs. That is crucial. You can't just put stuff somewhere and expect it to work, you know. Find the sweet spot. Find the right spot for your speakers. Find the right spot for your ears, and find the right spot for every absorber you add, a passive one or an AVAA. But I can see a combination of the AVAAs for the low end, some broadband absorbers for all the frequencies above that, and something like SonarWorks to furthermore improve and fine-tune the frequency response could be, I would say, a pretty cost-effective yet professional setup, even in smaller rooms. I gotta say, I'm still impressed that something like the AVAA exists. It's a truly innovative product. It's very useful. It's not the be-all, end-all, you know, it's not going to replace passive absorbers, but it can improve the sound in your studio, especially below 100 hertz. So let me know what you think. I want to hear your comments. That's all for today. Please subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed the video. Watch all my other videos. Say hello to your grandma. I see you in hell, motherfuckers. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.